How you doing, everybody? It's still the 20th of April 2010, and I just want to apologise if I had to cut that last video short. The reason being was I went into a bit of a serious rant, and there's nothing behind that I really doing that, and I said I wouldn't do that because it sort of invalidates the argument that you're putting across, as it were. I think it does anyway. It sort of belittles it, and I think really if you're going to say something, you have to say it with some sort of profundity. I know that's hard from my point of view to say it, but nonetheless I've got to try. I'm not used to it. And I was getting shaved this morning, and what happened was I was thinking to myself when I was getting shaved, are you really going to say what you're going to say today? Are you really aware of what you're going to say? And I am going to say what I'm going to say, obviously, but I would never have said this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It was only when I started making these videos and I started really taking an interest politically in what was going on, and from an economic point of view, reading all the articles and seeing and reading international articles. And I spend hours every day reading this stuff, and it's only made me it's only clarified the whole thing in my mind. And the more I read and the more I listen, and not only to the gurus on YouTube and all that, because some of them I agree with, all of them I don't, but in the main it's introduced a sort of level of clarity I never thought I'd have. And just basically all I want to say is I just want to continue what I started in that last post, in that last video post, and that is all that happened over the last 12-15 years is right across the whole world, but specifically the Western capitalist world, is that the sovereignty of all these various nations was either totally usurped or was compromised, seriously compromised. And that was done by transferring private bank debt to the public purse. In our case, they did it through NAMA. In other countries, they did it just directly. They just metaphorically put, the banks did, they metaphorically went and put the guns to the various governments' heads and threatened to, and that's what they did in America. That's what Paulson did in America. He threatened Congress and the Senate that they'd implode American society if they didn't get the TARP funds. So you've got to see who has this been done for? Who's all this been done for? And all this has been done for a small, tiny, elite group of people at the top of society. And there are gurus running around at the minute in YouTube and YouTube world at large, and they're saying that all this has happened by an accident, and it's nothing to do with the rich and the wealthy and the powerful. Alright? And they expect you to believe that. Well, let me tell you this. This is where it goes. The bottom line about it is, I can only tell you what went on in my little country. And my little country is a microcosm of what goes on at a macro level all throughout in the big countries of the world. And what went on in my little country was a tiny number of people at the very top, possibly no more than about 400 or 500 people. Certainly in terms of NAMA, it's less than 300 people. They ran up debts of 80 billion euros. You have to think about that. 80,000 million euros. Less than 300 people. Okay, so I'll give you an idea of what we're talking about. These are the same people, by the way, who are tax exiles, don't pay their taxes here. Or when they do pay if they do live here and make any contribution to society, it's negligible, the contribution they make. And what they've done is they've simply transferred their private debt to you and me and our children and our grandchildren, and it'll take many generations before that debt's paid off. Now they had agents who participated in that with them, and the two main agents were the banks, obviously, who loaned them the money in the first place, and the government. You might say, what do you mean? Well, I just told you the banks went to the government, the banks as the agents of these people who borrowed the money in the first place, went to the government and threatened our government, told them that they'd bring down Irish society. The government didn't bail them out, and our government succumbed to them. Now, how were they able to do that? They were able to do that because our government stood by and let the book value of their loan book, their total loan book, become many times the size of our GDP. At least 3 times the size of our GDP. The top 3 banks, their total loan book is over 420 billion. With the bulk of that being owed to German bondholders. We're now part of Germany. We owe the money to the headmaster. We were one of the last to get involved in the European Monetary Union. It's like the smallest boy in school borrowing the money from the headmaster. That's the situation we're in. We no longer have any sovereignty. We've been sold out by, at best, I've told you before, at best, a crowd of incompetents, at worst, a crowd of criminals, but probably, in reality, a crowd of incompetent criminals. That's the best way you could look at these people. And these people should all be in jail, alright, on charges of conspiracy and negligence. But they won't be, of course. But that's what should happen. You look into Dunnes Stores, some woman steal a pair of socks for her son, doesn't have any socks or whatever, alright? Or steal some food for somebody who's hungry. You get 6 months. These fellas stole hundreds, well not hundreds, yeah, hundreds of millions. More, stole billions. NAMA represents 54 billion. We'd have borrowed 54 billion. Nobody's going to go to jail for that. I told you that. No Shawnee Fitzpatrick's in jail, none of that. This is an elite, a cabal. And they've successfully transferred that debt. It's been well thought out, well carefully orchestrated plan all throughout the Western world. Their private debt is now public debt, it's now sovereign debt. But there's only one thing in making that sovereign debt. There's no more stages to go up, can't go up anymore. And this is a sovereign debt bubble of colossal proportions. And when this bubble finally pops, you know, it could pop in Ireland. Do you know that? I thought about it the other day. It could pop in Ireland. We actually could be, and nobody talks about it, but a financial services centre could be one of the things that makes it pop. It could be one of those derivatives, one of those special financial entities that has been drawn up. There could be a problem with that all across the world, and as a result of it, we could go to the wall. If you look at the Central Statistics Office figures, you can see our financial services centre, the people in it, they owe about 600 billion in borrowed money for all these derivatives and all this sort of stuff. Now the Central Statistics Office tell us that it's covered by the assets that they have against the loans, but the assets aren't, was it? These derivatives and these various financial instruments, complicated. They're not worth a light. They're not worth a friggin' light. Moody's and all those ratings agencies, they give them all AAA rating and all that. They're not worth a light. Now, any crisis does happen, I tell you, it'll be somewhere like the Financial Services Centre in Ireland, or somewhere like a big trading centre like Brussels, or somewhere in France, or somewhere in Italy. It won't be the likes of Greece. I don't think Greece is going to bring this down. But it has nowhere to run. We've arrived at the top element. It's gone through private debt, and it's now into public debt, into sovereign debt. It can't go anymore. It can't go anywhere else now. And boy, when it does go up, it'll really go up. And all these gobshites have got us into that. They'll have their day. They'll have their day in the sun. I hope I'm around to see it.